welcome to the Future Scale podcast, a podcast created for marketers and those that work in marketing, as well as those that are very, very interested in the field of marketing. Today, we have a very special guest, as with every other guest that I have on this podcast. Today, we'll be talking about the collaboration between marketing and PR, and there wasn't any other person that I wanted to have a conversation with than this lady. I've known her for quite a long time, actually over 10 years. And I reached out to her, and she was gracious enough to say yes, she's available, although she doesn't like being in front of the camera. I feel very special and honored that she had decided that she will be in front of the camera today. So, Dineo, thank you so much for agreeing to sit here, and you look absolutely amazing.
So much
As
for having
with
me.
everybody that sits where you are sitting, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're all about.
Sure. So my name is Dineo Molaba-Skhosana. I cannot omit Molaba, because hey, it's who I've always just been,
But
right?
double barrel.
Double barrel, but it will fade away. My bonus mom asked me about it the other day, and I was like, let's ease people into it. Hanyane, hanyane.
Transition.
Yeah. So Dineo is, I think, firstly a child of God.
Yes.
I can't shy away from that one. And it's something that I proudly, kind of showcase on a daily basis. Ke ngwana Modimo. A child to my parents. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. And a communications or PR communication specialist.
Yes.
Have been in this game for about 15 years to date.
Sure. You see, I always have gurus sitting on this table because 15 years is a long time. So there's a lot of knowledge inside that head. So, Dini, how I run this is it's a platform where people actually tell authentic stories, because I believe marketers need to tell authentic stories so they are able to touch the hearts of the consumers that they want to engage with. And as true Africans, storytelling is an innate thing.
100%.
So I'm going to lay a scenario for you.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to let you be the storyteller. Imagine we're sitting around a bonfire and they are 20 Ntabi Singhs from the age of 6 to 40. Because you never stop learning. I'm 40, but I'm still learning from everybody that sits here.
Yeah.
Tell us who you are over and above how you've introduced yourself, where you come from, who believed in you, why you are where you are, and the importance of you occupying the space that you're occupying within the comms and PR space.
Sure. It's a deep question, right? And I think my first answer was specifically from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
The mere fact that I do kind of identify myself as a child of God, firstly. I suppose I am a sibling to my brother and my sister. Can't also discredit them. They've been a part of my life, my whole life, essentially. From a storytelling perspective, I do deserve to be here, right? Yes. I do deserve to be occupying the space
Absolutely.
that I'm occupying. I'm a firm believer in the fact that I believe that my life has been orchestrated to the T, right? So I started out. So let's start out at home.
Yeah.
My first, cheerleaders, the first people to believe Dineo is actually a special child, and thus being named Dineo, which is gifts. She comes bearing a whole lot of gifts are my parents.
Yeah.
And those are the number one people that I would want to give credit to. It then escalates to, different phases in my life where I've gone to, different schools. And there's always just been, people, like I'm saying, when I mention the fact that I believe that my life has been orchestrated to a certain extent,
Yeah.
they've always just been people who are who find a way to have been gravitated towards me.
You. Yeah.
And just kind of, almost guiding and serving that older sister, older brother, kind of a purpose. It further kind of moves on to my first intern days at RK Burson Mestella. And I found also equally big sisters there, who just naturally wanted to just guide me and see me through just in terms of growth, from an agency perspective. And that's also one experience that I'm quite I completely talk up for is the benefit of having worked in an agency that makes you go in there and you grind.
Yes.
You literally need to like pull up your sleeves.
Yes.
And it's mad.
Yeah.
24/7. It's mad 24/7. So that there's been, kind of benefits there, and there've been people there who've believed. The biggest thing, in type of thing, is just having people see you, right? And believe that you are capable beyond your own imagination, right? So you're there to do one thing, but they see something a whole lot more bigger, which then kind of circles back to what my parents saw to begin with, right?
Isn't that grace?
I mean.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying that
grace.
I've identified it throughout my walk in life, throughout my career to date. There've been people who've been there to advocate, and there've been people to be there and guide, and direct. So that's been a blessing. And those are the people that I owe major shout outs to, right? I could name a few. Pumezam Zaidume,
Yes.
whom I don't forget to date.
Yes.
Who took me under her wing in my intern days. Tobeka Shongwe, whom I got to work with. And people experience people in different lights,
yes.
right?
Yes.
But for me, she was just an older sister.
Yeah.
And able to say, do this that way.
Yeah.
Don't do this way.
Yeah.
Rather look at this opportunity. This is good for you now. This is not great for you now.
Yeah.
And just painted the bigger picture for me when I was unable to see the bigger picture, right? And then there were a whole lot of managers. There were a lot of clients. And I think that's where we met, who just saw me for just being me, right? And my ability outside of what I just brought to the table. So those are my biggest contributors, I think, to date.
And why do you think these people actually wanted to help you and believed in you? I mean, these are random strangers. Outside of the grace of God, what is it about you that made these people want to help you?
I just want to say, because I'm me. Look at us. Look at all of us.
Absolutely, she's gorgeous. I promise you, she is so gorgeous.
No, but I suppose people get attracted by specific character traits, right? And I'm currently just going through a leadership course, and yesterday they wanted us to just define our brands, what we stand for. What are your what's your ethos? What drives you as an individual? And sometimes those very same character traits attract other people, right? So I think for the longest time I've been commended by other people for having a teachable spirit. And that then kind of attracts people who are like, okay, there's a natural student here. Let's gravitate towards her and teach her and show her, the ropes. So I've always just been open to learning and seeing opportunities for what they can present, and allowing the next person as well to share their words of wisdom, their 2 cents of experience, right? And being open enough to be like, okay, how do I take it and use it to go forward, type of thing.
And as a young Tabi Singh who has heard about you having the teachable spirit, how do I ensure that I am a teachable individual and I'm able to attract people that can actually walk this challenging journey of life with me.
Yeah. I think firstly, open yourself up and be intentional about being open, right? I'm of the view that a lot of people, even the weirdest of the weirdest people, have a lesson in either the way they talk, their journeys to date. There's a lesson in every single one of those things, and I'm a firm believer in looking past the immediate, right? The obvious. Read between the lines about why am I engaging with Ntabiseng? What am I learning from Ntabiseng, right? I'm learning the fact that you need to be brave enough to go after your own dreams and be brave enough to stand independently, even in the midst of...
It's not even about me. But I'll take it.
I'm just saying. So on my side, that's the one thing that I've learned with, say, for instance, coming or our paths crossing, right? Yeah. Is you having taken the journey that you've taken. There's a great amount of lessons in that as well. It's stand up for the dream that you want to pursue, and at whatever cost.
Yep.
At whatever cost, right? Lord. At the cost of a salary.
Yep. Stability.
Stability.
Yes.
But yeah, work your purpose. Yeah. And don't be afraid to stand in your light. And don't be afraid to walk your journey independently as well.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. When Dineo was young, did Dineo ever imagine being in comms and PR? Is it a journey that you've always envisioned for yourself? Or did that ambition change along the way?
Interlinked dots, right? So I've always known that I'm a big fan of writing, big fan of reading. And we grew up in an era where working for an agency, if you watch Generations...
Everybody refers to Generations.
I know.
Sorry to just interject. There's a clip that I saw of a person working at an agency. And then they wrote a note to Mfundi Vundla and they said, you made working for an agency look like what it looked like on Generation. Yeah. Look at my life now.
Now, completely different. Completely different, right? But yeah, we were that influenced generation. Yes, from Generations. Yes. Pun intended, right?
Influencers.
I mean... Yes. So I knew for a fact that I wanted to be in the comms. I'm actually quite surprised that I didn't end up in like journalism. So I had a massive obsession of magazines. I used to follow Miss Kanye Dlomo.
Yes. True Love.
Yes. And then Drum she started Destiny. Yes. I had every single copy.
Yes.
So I'm quite surprised that I didn't even go that route. But it's all kind of interlinked, right? And then I remember having a conversation with my dad after matric, and he was like, you need to make a decision. If you don't, because my dad was in the SANDF. If you don't, I can always arrange for you to go. And I was like, no, let's focus and get a bit of an overview of what career path I can follow. And I connected the dots, and business communications was definitely an avenue for me. And I think I'm blessed actually to you to kind of to your question, because I studied an area that I currently have a career in, and very few of my previous kind of, alumni mates are in the same boat. You find a lot of people who have to steer into admin and IT and a whole lot of different other directions.
There goes Grace again.
Absolutely. Orchestrated. All interlinked, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I just kind of further fell in love with it, having experienced the agency life. And I was blessed enough to start in an agency that had big ticket clients, McDonald's. They had Dell.
Sure.
They had HP.
Sure.
They had Vodacom back then. So as an intern, having an opportunity to work on those big brands, right? And seeing the process and seeing the combination of, okay, marketing does this. You know, the social media guys back then, it wasn't a whole lot of stuff. But you got a sense of...
digital was something else.
Yeah, it actually looked like it was just being done by someone's cousin at...
I remember we used to do it.
But yeah, I think it was a very humbling experience. And that's why I'm like, I will never, ever, ever take away my experience at an agency. Because it grooms you to the T. And I understand why a whole lot of other corporates look for individuals who are from agency. Because A, you know how to roll up your sleeves. You live in the mud. So it's the hard work. The grit is your thing. And then you walk into a corporate and man, you're a soldier, hey? If they tell you, okay, 12 hours today, you're willing to like get in there and literally pull the 14 hours, not even 12. Whereas other people who come from much more relaxed environments, they struggle a little bit.
Why did you move from agency to corporate?
It was time.
What does that mean?
You can only do the mud for a certain period of time. And then you want depth. Because what agency gives you is just a range of experience across different sectors. So you work on a client in the mining space. So I used to work on Shanduka.
Oh, okay.
At one point with Puti Mahanyele. Such a humbling experience, that one. Loved it. And then you work on a big bank. And then you'll touch on different other projects, right? In the food and beverage space, fast food space. Like it gives you, I suppose, experience into different sectors, 100%. But it gives you also the opportunity for you to identify which sector
you fit
into. And then you work on the depth. And that's when you transition into corporate. So I was able to identify very early on while I was at RK that I really wanted to grow in financial services. And that informed my move from RK to Fleischmann, who had, at the time, they had like R&B private bank in agency. They had a number of financial services clients, BJM, stockbroking back then. And that informed my move. But I was very intentional, right? In that I really, really wanted to grow in that space.
In the financial space.
100%.
What about it was appealing to you?
That's actually a very interesting question. I think that the sector itself, right? If you get an opportunity to work, well, back then, considering just how much the landscape has changed now, if you got an opportunity to work with one of the big four banks back then, massive,
that's a banking.
I mean, a massive, kind of influence on your CV, number one, right? And then there was one specific one that I work for right now. That was just always a dream.
Really?
Always a dream.
Really?
Always.
What stuck out about the specific one that you're working for?
So think back to 2010 what this bank meant back in 2010. It revolutionized the entire sector.
It did.
And every single marketer, comms person that you spoke
wanted
to be there.
We really
right?
did.
And even the marketing guys that worked in the bank at that time, who led the transition with the likes of a Michael Jordan. Sheesh. We looked up to those people, right? Because
they were game changers. They really were.
So that was, I think, one of the biggest influences for going into financial services. But I also kind of viewed a lot of the comms people in the space as deep specialists. Because number one, you need to understand the landscape. It's one of those environments you can't just
That's true.
and get by. You can't. You actually need to be deeply invested and spend a whole lot of time studying your brand, what you offer, the messaging that you guys are putting out there, strategic intent as well for the brand, right? Where is the brand going? And that kind of informs what you guys do on a daily basis. Versus what every other bank is doing. So I think I got attracted just to that level of thought, and the level of influence that a PR practitioner in this specific space would play versus in another sector.
Valid. Very valid. I'm so glad that you always bring in the fact that you worked for an agency. Just makes me sitting opposite you very excited because I understand that you were introduced to marketing or marketers
100% at an early stage.
At an early stage. So I'm very interested in your experience in working with marketers from the get-go. How was that for you? And how is it for you currently? So from an agency perspective to now you being or rather employing an agency to help you do your job.
Yeah. So I must say that it was mind-blowing. And only because of I got an opportunity to engage with them firstly as a co-agency, right? So what you would find is that a big brand such as a Vodacom would outsource a specific advertising and marketing agency. And then by affiliation, they would bring in a PR agency. So we used to look up to these guys, hey, because the marketing and the agency guys, hey, I mean, they were the brainchilds in terms of like, this is the narrative we'll take with a specific project or a specific campaign, right? And then by virtue of them creating that, everyone would go back and map back to that, the golden idea.
Bigger picture, yes.
100%.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I've always seen the marketing and the advertising guys as like geniuses.
That's so nice.
Geniuses. But
oh Lord,
it only happens when these geniuses have a close understanding of what the brand is trying to achieve. And I've seen it. I've worked with other big brands and their agencies, and you get moments in times where just the campaign idea presented by agency is just so spot on, right? They even get standing ovations in some of those presentations, which then makes it seamless for us to then come in and say, okay, from a PR perspective, this is how we then, support.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience of marketing, working with the marketing colleagues, right?
In agency, yeah.
Within agency. Geniuses. Then you get bits and pockets of special moments in time.
Go at it. Yes.
Very special moments in times where it's a clear indication that our marketing colleagues don't understand the IMC mix, which I know you and I are very familiar with. The best bet for a win is to always go IMC, which is then integrated marketing communication.
Correct.
So we all sing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
The guys that provide strategic direction in terms of what narrative are we driving, do that. Marketing comms, marketing advertising guys. Then we all kind of sing off 100%. We sing off that same kind of hymn book. And there have been instances where just some marketers don't get it, and some marketers operate in silos. And the direct result of that is just a disjointment, right? From a comms perspective, it's actually painful to watch. You can see it with certain brands.
Yep.
Where they launch something at a specific event the day before. You go onto the social media, they are promoting some competition.
Yes.
You go onto, their billboards.
Yep. Different messaging.
Completely different messaging. And it looks like they're just a schizophrenic brand, right? There isn't alignment and such a missed opportunity because with cohesiveness and almost like an orchestrated flow of comms comes so much power. And I must say that I've seen it with my recent brand. You look at different kind of brand relaunches. And when it works like a relay, where PR goes live, followed by digital, same message. The power that has, right, across different touch points is amazing.
Very true.
It is amazing.
Very true.
Yeah.
So the disjointedness, is it within the agency space or within the corporate space?
Within the both the marketing and I suppose the comms fraternity, right? Because they're different disciplines to a certain extent. So if every single person understood that, number one, we serve one brand, then every single person could play their role respectively, and every single person could run in their lane.
Thank you.
With respect, with respect to what marketing has to do. And that's why I like referring to it as a relay. Because if it's coordinated and we all kind of sing off the same hymn sheet, we all know exactly the same, that we're running in the same direction, right? I know that, okay, who goes first? PR needs to go first with an announcement release of the specific campaign, hands it over to marketing to then, distribute a direct mailer to our clients, hands it over to social media to amplify on digital, hands it over to, you know what I mean? It's very much coordinated. So if all those disciplines don't have an appreciation of each other's lanes, doesn't stay authentic to, okay, PR is supposed to do this, I know what I'm supposed to do and I'm going to execute it to the T, then you start seeing people playing in other people's lanes to justify their existence. And yes, I said that.
So, and yes, and I appreciate you saying that. So my decoding of what you said is the disconnectedness and silo practice is within corporate. People don't know their respective roles. People work for brands, but they don't really understand the
So,
there's always this notion that PR only gets involved when shit hits the fan. How true is that? And why is there such a narrative about PR? And maybe just to also layer that question, when is it the right time to get PR involved when it comes to anything that has to do with the brand
from
itself?
The get-go? From the get-go. And we've had instances, I think we've had to iron out a couple of ways of working with certain stakeholders to clarify the fact that PR doesn't only get involved at the tail end or when things are burning, with the expectation that they'll come in and fix, right? Contrary to what a lot of people believe, that we are fixers. But I think it serves a greater purpose if you are brought in from the get-go, given grace and an opportunity to even identify if something is about to go pear-shaped. Would you not rather have the function identify possible risks ahead of the fire starting, right? And rather giving you warning signs to say, we see a possible fire coming out of this one, all right? So right at the beginning is where PR should be brought in alongside all the other functions. So I think what we've gotten very good at doing as a brand where I'm at now is just being able to rally up everyone from the get-go with the first brief. And people aren't, kind of called in with wait, there's social media that needs to also be briefed in, right? I think you do get one or two people that brief and they forget a couple of other peeps. But we've gotten so accustomed to it that the other functions will point out that, we don't have presence from direct marketing in here. And we don't have presence from social media in here. Surely they should also be, kind of roped in for this briefing. So that everyone is on the same page from the get-go. And we all build out our execution plans in exactly the same way. If some of our plans need to marry one another at a specific point, we're able to then come together and see how we marry our plans. So especially with PR and social, that seems to be going in that direction more and more, right? On a daily basis. There's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen, and a lot of collaboration that then kind of forms on the way of finalizing an integrated marketing comms plan that kind of alludes back to the IMC mix that I spoke to earlier on.
And for somebody who's just starting as a PR specialist in corporate, what are the fundamental things that they need to know?
Collaboration is gold. It's everything, right? There aren't any silos. I don't think we can win in silos. And I think that's where the biggest problem started back in the day, right? When people were just like, we want to win with our own coverage because we are PR, without that comms kind of feeding into the bigger central content plan, if you'll have it, right? So what works now is just that level of collaboration, everyone coming in to say, okay, what exactly are we driving? This is the narrative, this is the messaging that we are driving with the intent of what? Driving this business objective, right? And with that in mind, this is the actual central content plan. From this, okay, marketing, you guys will see how you guys then feed into this. Social media, you guys will see how you feed into this, but we all sing off the same hymn sheet. I think I've said that a million times.
Yes.
But for a new person that's coming, literally that's gold.
Yeah.
Bringing together all these functions for the sake of being one brand. That's the one saying we always kind of remind each other of, even today in the brands, right? Is that we are one brand, one vision. We are all trying to reach one objective. And it's not about marketing outshining PR, outshining the DM guys with the customers. It's about every single person getting their time in the sun for the betterment of their brand. You know what I mean? So it needs to just always be about one brand.
There's AI. It's been there for years. It's just that in the past couple of years,
It's just boomed, right?
just boomed. But there's the part about AI that involves copywriting,
yes.
storytelling, design in the aspect. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think with AI, definitely a space that all disciplines actually within the comm space need to be looking out for, right? I know specifically in our space, we are keeping on top of it, just in terms of the new tools that are being introduced. But I don't ever think that it's something that would replace our function. Definitely not, right? Especially if we operate not necessarily only from an operational point of view, because those are the functions that are being done by the AI tools. But if you bring in a bit more empathy, a bit more of the human touch, the human eye, right, that these tools don't necessarily have and that our brands actually need, the biases, right? We talk a lot about the mere fact that our messages carry biases that are not necessarily easily seen by certain individuals, but by our kind of own empathetic and human eye with different diverse views, we're able to say, but having a granny who's jiving for this and that is not a great view from this specific kind of perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
You've just reminded me of that granny. I saw it.
And how much of an uproar there was around that granny, right?
Yeah.
So we're able to bring in, because there's certain people for reals, what I've seen, because I know that at one point our previous colleague used to head up a bias, almost like a bias forum, where we all kind of sit together. And I think that was actually quite powerful, right? Where we bring in diverse individuals within the organization and we scrutinize our messaging and we scrutinize our ads and we scrutinize as to whether or not the imagery that we're using on our website resonates or if they offend. Because to one person, for reals, they actually don't.
They don't see
They
it.
don't see it.
Yeah, they don't see it because you're working on it and you think, I've attended to some of the challenges or concerns that customers might have, whereas somebody outside of you working on the project sees it differently.
And again, back to the the mama who's dancing for her tea. Another person, all it takes is just another person's perspective. To be like, we actually don't do this for our tea or our food.
Do you think brands are doing that now?
I think little by little. Because if they're not doing it internally, right, they're being called out by different other forums externally. Would you not rather be called out internally and scrutinize the content internally and the imagery and the collateral internally before it goes out externally?
Do you think they're doing it, Dini?
Some of them. So I know
from a percentage.
I speak for mine. Yes, we do.
Besides yours. So we're talking beyond yours now. With what you see out there, do you think they are doing it?
In bits and pockets. And I think others just have the notion that no PR is bad PR. Or as a matter of fact, let's make them make noise around a specific issue.
It's bad PR. But PR is PR.
It's coverage either way, So I think increasingly there are brands that are quite conscious about that unconscious bias that exists in some of the messaging and there are some that just like carry on with or without it.
And which brands are those besides your brand that are conscious? Of one? Or you're just being optimistic?
I'm probably not remembering one.
Okay. We'll move on from there. We'll absolutely move on from there.
I'm hoping there's one.
You see, we live in hope. So, sure.
So your views is
no,
they really aren't.
My view is there's a lot that is happening out there, and a lot of the times there's a lot of noise, and not necessarily positive noise. People are not necessarily giving consumers what consumers want in the way that they want it.
True.
We create solutions internally, thinking that we are solving problems that are not there. So it's what I've been seeing, and I'm passionate about it because I also caught myself doing it from a personal perspective.
I saw your post.
Yes, from a personal perspective, whereas there's a lot of data. So what I'm trying to figure out, purely from somebody that is really interested in the psyche of people and people's needs and all of that, is are we struggling to understand the human behavior and needs? Or are we struggling to decode the data that we've got? Or we are able to do that, but because people have so many options and it's touch here, leave here, touch here, leave here, we're not able to keep up. Or there's a lot of ors.
Yeah.
Or
we're able to,
but
we want to go with the option that's
a safer one.
100%.
But also
a safer one and one that serves me, right?
Correct. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I go with what serves me, am I really solving for Ntabiseng? You know, or am I just saying to Ntabiseng, well, you actually literally bullying. You actually have no other option because I'm your only option. So you will use me as I am. Whether I fit in or I don't fit in, that's another story.
Whether you know you don't, you actually need me.
You need me. Yeah. You know? And true to form, I mean, in your space, I need you.
100%.
I really do.
It's the other way around as well, though.
There's stuff that I can't do without you.
Yeah.
Because we've been made to depend on you guys. Do you get what I mean? So do I feel that you are giving me what I need? I don't know. Obviously I'm not gonna say, no, you're not doing it. But I don't know. You know, there's some people that feel that way. There's some people that don't feel that way. But now I just feel there's a lot right now that is happening. There are a lot of people that have voices. There's a lot of data that is out there. Are we utilizing it properly? No, I don't think so. Maybe it's because Kifezia transition as well, because of the chaos that is happening and the instability.
I think though we do know better, right? I think the data, to your point, the data is there that shows behaviorally what do people need, what do people not need, right? What am I able to kind of solution for those needs, and what can't I, right? I think people just choose not to use the data, or to know what the data kind of provides from a viewing perspective. But you kind of pick the ones, to my earlier point, the ones that serve a purpose for me, right?
This will fit in. I've created this whole sort of
thing.
Let's fit into this.
If I benefit from Ntabiseng knowing that she actually needs the dress that I'm wearing, it's a matter of life and death for you to have this product. Whether or not you're wearing another dress, do you really need another dress? I don't think so, right? But I need to sell it into you so that I benefit from it. If I make money, then if it's with the intent of making money, then I want to make money from it. Am I ignoring the fact that I already have the data that actually Ntabiseng already has other dresses? Yes, I am. So I think it's just choice. We have the data, and some brands choose to ignore the data for their own kind of benefit. I'd say from a commercial point of view.
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, as you were saying that, I definitely was thinking, it's definitely from a commercial perspective.
Yeah.
We've spoken about your journey and the people that walked this journey with you, being sent through by God. And the one thing that stuck out, which I found myself just thinking about as you were speaking, is that there's this narrative that Black women are not for each other, and Black women will not pull out a hand and pull you up.
100%.
You know, and what you just said It's contrary to that.
It's the complete inverse, right?
Completely. Which is encouraging and also paints a different light. And people actually need to hear these kind of stories because these are important stories that when one gets into a space where they are new, don't listen to what other people are saying. They could be a female, and a black female at that, who's very interested in your growth and progress. So people need to look out for that and be open-minded, as you said, and be teachable at that.
100%.
We then moved into a chapter where you spoke about you working in an agency, which gave you a broad perspective and gave you experience broadly, where you were then able to identify the kind of space that you want to be in.
Yeah.
But within that broad exposure, you were also able to learn and understand the importance of IMC.
Yeah.
Which then enabled you to pick up when they are disconnects.
Yeah. Very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly.
You know?
Yeah.
Then when you transitioned into another chapter, which is corporate, you took your learnings with you. You found yourself in a space where there is that disconnect.
Yeah.
And people working in silos for whatever reason. Some we mentioned earlier, some don't understand the brand and all of that, but that's not important. What's important is us understanding that it's important for all parties to work together because we've got one objective.
Absolutely.
And this is to service the customer that we've created solutions for and understand them. Then we spoke about people that are getting
The
it
sticky
wrong.
subject.
Your jokers and the likes.
Yeah.
And AI and AI not necessarily being a threat. And it's important for us to say that because there are people that are
Actually
very threatened.
Absolutely.
Earlier I was listening to an older gentleman who was saying, I used to quote a company X amount of money when they wanted work from me 2 years ago. Now, this year they came through, they wanted a quote. I gave them a quote, but they never got back to me, only to find that they were using AI. Because I had set the foundation for them so they could use the fundamentals that I had put together to plug into AI. Now I'm losing my job. Now, somebody else then said, I'm in my 40s. I'm not worried about me losing my job. But with the advancement of AI, our kids might be out of jobs because when we were growing up, parents always used to say when you pursue a career in the arts or creative space or writing, it's not a proper job. Now we're going back. Yeah, exactly. Now with AI that's being introduced, we're going back to that concept of saying, or reinforcing what parents used to say, or it's actually not a real job. Look, a robot can actually do it.
I think it's important though just to kind of re-emphasize the fact that it's not completely making the job redundant. It's just changing its form and almost forcing you to upweight exactly.
Yeah.
Upweight whatever function you are doing, right? So I think if you play more in the strategic, the thinking, then it requires a bit more of that as opposed to the redundant. write, do.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That could easily be replaced.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, any form of technological innovation is just to make our work that much easier.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So it's about, bringing efficiency from a time perspective. So you're not spending a whole lot of time doing things that could easily be picked up by a tool.
Correct.
And you spend more time just applying your mind more and challenging from an intellectual point of view on whatever function you're doing. And thinking a tad bit, 2-3 degrees higher.
Push it up.
Absolutely.
And the reason why I spoke about AI and the job that you do and the job that I do and concerns of people is because I want to understand what your opinion is on PR in the next 5 to 10 years.
Sure.
PR and comms, rather.
Yeah. So I think the redundant stuff like that I'd spoken to around basic admin that could easily get replaced by tools will be for efficiency's sake. Would not make sense for a PR, consultant to still be pulling together coverage reports and writing them to the T in the next 5 years. That would be a complete waste of that individual resource's time, right? And to your earlier point, I think over the next 5 years, it will definitely be about ramping up and amplifying our thinking as PR consultants. And not only in a siloed way, I think we are going, and I think a lot of scholars have actually kind of predicted this shift where everything is just integrated. The PR practitioner is not just about writing and reputation management, but will definitely play into other facets as well to a certain extent. So I think more and more the shift of collaboration is all kind of becoming one. And the marketing cousin will definitely become the sister over time underneath one banner. I think that's where we're shifting towards.
And is that not then another threat that people need to be worried about with?
If they're redundant in the way that they do things, if they aren't open to the fact that actually the world is moving and, the way we do things will need to also kind of shift with more integration that will then become one type of thing. I actually honestly think that we are moving towards that direction where we'll literally just live in one house.
Well, living in one house, currently when we live in one house, you have about 20 people. And
in different rooms.
But now we are now put in, we'll be forced to be put in one room. And within that room, 20 of us will not necessarily fit.
Yeah.
Right?
Which means?
Because, as you said, we would need to acquire various skills because now we're moving towards IMC, right? Holistically. Which then goes back to my question now. If AI is not my threat, the collaboration or upping my game as a PR or marketing specialist then means that I might not necessarily be part of the 20.
Absolutely.
So what do I do? What other avenues can I then explore if I'm not part of the 20 and my passion is still in PR?
I know of other sectors that have just completely moved into other areas of the business, right? So if your role was completely around the redundant, take this, put it there, you know what I mean?
Put together.
Absolutely. Then it would either be conversations about how do I, kind of step it up. But they're only, to your point, there are only a certain number of people that can be accommodated in the step it up space, right? And that then kind of brings in the conversation, which I think we've had with a whole lot of corporates around, number one, embracing change, and number two, kind of seeing a completely different area of your career as an elevation of where you were. So some people would then be required to then kind of challenge themselves to move out of corporate, not corporate, like PR.
Yes.
And see if they can then delve into other different areas where they can use the skills that they've acquired in the space into other people-centered environments. You know what I mean?
I mean, as you were speaking now, I was actually thinking about the linking what you're saying to what is happening currently. They graduate from that, but they're not able to get into corporate within what they studied for, right?
Yeah.
And they get into other roles that are outside of what they studied. And then hobanale that thing yore, no, they studied the wrong thing. They were never supposed to. Yeah, they were never supposed to get it. Yeah, exactly. You'll never get mosebetsi ka the thing. Bona janong, we spent 3 years paying for moto o never akene into PR. Janong ke I'm trying to find a
different
thing so I don't offend people, but janong or something of that sort, you know. Not something that we wanted for this person. And what you were saying to me then points out, even though you might have studied a particular thing, you need to be quite aware of what is happening around you.
Absolutely.
Because you might study PR, but because there's a shift, and
be open to reinventing innovation,
you have to up your game and reinvent yourself by amplifying what you have studied, so it makes you marketable
100%
into whatever space you want to be in. And it's so true what you're saying, Ore. I don't think there is a corporate entity right now that wants to employ anybody or specialize in fela country one.
Definitely, you know, not. Nah.
You can't. And this thing, hanging out with Gen Zs, I heard multi-hyphenate individuals. You have to be a multi-hyphenate individual.
Absolutely.
Because that is a differentiator. So you are making a lot of sense.
Okay.
So how can one effectively use AI within your space?
I think like I'd mentioned earlier on, that it's just been so much different tools, right, that surface on a daily basis. Some that you could even question the credibility of, right? That could even in turn make your work kind of questioned from a credibility perspective. So I think it's worthwhile to keep them on your radar. It's worthwhile for you to actually look and follow the different tools that are being introduced and whether or not they actually do serve a purpose, right, for your function in line with regulatory, kind of requirements from your organization, especially if you're in a corporate. So that's the first one I would say, right, to the viewers, is you don't just jump into these tools. Some of them aren't necessarily allowed, right, from a legal regulatory perspective within your organization, but worthwhile for you to track them and see if you can go back to the organization and motivate for your team to use them, especially if you can almost present a use case of sorts that drives efficiency for your team. So if you're able to say, by using a specific tool, number one, it doesn't question the credibility of the organization. Number two, it lessens the amount of time that the team spends on a specific function by X amount of hours. Then I think it's worthwhile as a consideration by the organization as to whether or not they can actually leverage this tool or the team can leverage this tool to carry out a specific function. Then you free up your resources to actually take a step back and strategically think. Because sometimes what happens is that you guys get bogged down
with the operational work.
In the operation and drown you.
It does.
It can drown
That's
a team.
That's why people are burnt out.
Absolutely. Completely drown a team. And then you guys just end up doing things for the sake of doing things and you're ticking lists, right? And you don't have enough capacity and enough time to take a step back and challenge the status quo and see how you can do things differently within your function, right? How can you reintroduce certain things from a PR perspective and be the challenger brand or enable your brand to be the challenger brand that it used to be, right? Otherwise, you get stuck.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you get stuck in the monotonous analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
doing. It's a problem.
You've just reminded me of somebody that always used to say, stuck, more analysis paralysis.
Yay. Yeah.
Dini, we're talking about innovation, making sure that you keep up with the changes that are happening as an individual. So we're talking about individual brands.
Yeah.
How are you keeping up with the changes that are happening in and around you?
That's a powerful question, and it's actually interesting that it comes on the back of a discussion we had yesterday at a leadership course that I'm currently doing around the importance of not just your intelligence quotient, emotional quotient, but there's relevance quotient as well. The new currency, right? How do you keep yourself relevant, both from a personal perspective as well as a professional perspective? And I think with me, it's that ongoing internal conversation about, okay, you need to go back and resharpen the iron, which is the continuous learning at different institutions. And not just only in our field, right? Which talks back to your earlier point. Or yes, you might want to deeply root yourself as a specialist, but the fact is this function is changing by virtue of everything else moving in a specific direction with the likes of AI coming into the picture, etc. So at the moment, it's one having a conversation with themselves to say, okay, how do I redefine that step up for me? Is it from a general management, understanding the general landscape of the industry I'm in, right? And not just the function and the technical skill that I have. How do I now broaden myself up and resource myself and capacitate myself enough to be considered in a completely different area, but bring in the skill that I've acquired over the last 15 years within the PR space, right? Would I be able to go into an ops environment? I think that's the question that I'm having with myself at the moment to ensure that Dineo is still relevant in the next 5 years.
Correct.
Would Dineo still be relevant if focusing only on what she's doing right now? I don't think so.
I don't think so too.
I don't think so. I think I would be doing myself a disservice, and I would proactively be placing myself in the firing line of
You'd
those
be
people
unemployable.
Absolutely first people to get chopped. If that case comes into play, considering that we live in South Africa, right? And the economic landscape is the way it is, you get organizations that have to go through that exercise. So how do you empower yourself firmly enough, right, to diversify your skill or use that and then broaden your skill to a certain extent to land you to different areas that you wanna grow in by education. Right.
And because you were very resolute and intentional in being within the space that you're in, are you resolute and intentional in being another space? Have you visualized another space,
Absolutely.
or do you still want to remain within the financial industry?
I'm definitely open to moving into other sectors, and I think the by and large the biggest advantage as well with working with the brand that we're working with is that it's very much structured like an agency.
Yes,
right?
it
So
is.
you get
It
your home
really
loan,
is,
yeah. You get your
yes.
home loans. You
Yes.
get the car financing guys
Yeah.
on the West Bank. You get a whole lot, a myriad of different subsectors in one organization. And that in turn kind of gives you an opportunity to delve into, okay, if I was to go the telco route,
Yeah.
I've had a bit of it in this space.
Within this space because of the
Absolutely.
innovation.
100%, right? Then you could definitely kind of move into it. So I think over the years, having been blessed with working with such a great team, right? And such a great brand as well, is also the opportunity and the ability to have almost kind of delved into the subsectors that come with this business. Would I want to move and have my next 5-10 years look different in another sector? Definitely. If for me, if it defines, that's the word. If it defines growth for Dineo, definitely. Yeah. I'm not about stagnation.
That's great. I think it's quite evident. So, Dini, this was lovely. It really was, and it was also relevant, and it's also shown how relevant you are. In a sense, you understand what is happening around you, and you understand how to elevate, right, to keep up with what is happening. So, before we close off, I always ask my guests, if you were to write a brief about your life, how would that brief look? Or what would be the tone of the brief? What would be the underlying or the leading message of that brief? For some, they've said they don't want to create an ad. They would prefer to write a book.
Yeah.
And my question then was, what would be the soundtrack to either that campaign or book, and who would be the leading person that you know now?
From me.
Apart from you. It's like,
sure, it's such a deep question, right? But with me, with the brief, I wouldn't necessarily want to close it in. I would want to just leave it to 3 key distinct words or principles, right? That define Dineo's life. And for me, it's always been God, family, growth. Anything and everything centered around that would essentially kind of capture what Dineo is about. Is it a soundtrack? Is it an ad? I'm not phased.
all that mattered is that the
the 3 key principles that define me are captured. If it comes across as an infographic,
then
I'm happy with it. Right. As long as my anchoring principles are clearly defined in it, I'm happy. Books are overrated to a certain extent. Everyone wants to write a book. I'm like,
this lady, everyone wants to write a book when she's speaking to an author.
No offense.
I have taken it 1,000 times. But before we close off, the one thing I want to introduce is when I ask people to join me, I always say to them, come as your truest self. Come as you are. And you came as you are. So I need to understand why this dress, why these beautiful shoes, why the red lips. What message are you trying to put across to somebody that is watching you? They've already made up their mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
they made up their minds in the first 3 seconds of watching this thing.
For you, what were you trying to portray? Yeah. Or who is this person that has to be seen?
Sure. Another loaded question. Deep. I suppose my biggest messaging is just that the mere fact that I'm beautifully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
As I am. Yes. Right. I am a firm believer in owning the space that you sit in.
Yeah.
And there are certain ways that you do that. If you go for personal branding exercises and sessions, they'll tell you about different techniques that you can do that. If you don't have hair and you choose not to have hair, because also it's part of a bigger journey for Dineo to be as she is, then there are different ways for you to pop and stand out in rooms.
Yes.
It's for you to wear colors.
Yes.
That completely scream your character and who you are. And to wear lip color.
Yes.
That allows you to take the center stage over and above, our presenter. For you to look like you're the presenter. But yeah, it's about, I honestly think everything that I've put together is just about me owning who I am and being able to step into a room and be memorable. That Dineo was here.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. She had that beautiful shoe on.
Yes, you did. My God. I have not stopped saying such a beautiful shoe.
Thank you. It's very old, but yeah.
It's the old ones that
Yes, the classic ones. Absolutely. So it's about owning my space, and it's about being able to step in here and saying, I deserve to be here. Yeah. And I'm here. And you must feel that I'm here.
You must see me.
You must see me that I'm here.
I love that. Yeah. I really do. Thank you so much for making the time. Absolutely. Thank you for putting in the effort. You look absolutely beautiful. And I really enjoyed you. I really, really did. And I appreciate this time. So I wish you all the best. I know you're going to be amazing in your next chapter. Outside of grace, you're very resolute and intentional. So when you have that, I don't think there's anything that can deter you from the journey that you want to
100%
take on. Yeah. So all the best. And thank you so much once again. And thank you to everybody that stayed with us and walked the different chapters with us, even though this lady says the books are overrated. But
I just think there are
we
different
still
ways.
Create chapters. But I'll catch everybody in the next chapter.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time as well, and for the consideration.
Of course.
And just seeing me. Yeah. And thinking that my story, was worthwhile to be told and shared with your followers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.